All right. So I want to talk about Ruby and Ruby-like things on Android. So the first thing is we're going to talk a little bit about how you would get Ruby running on Android. Well, not exactly Ruby. We don't start with Ruby because first you have to install the Android SDK because that needs to be available so that you can actually like run an emulator and build packages. So you need to do that first. But then you can use this thing called Ruboto, which is kind of a hacked version of JRuby that runs on Android, which is really cool. So if you wanted to create an app with that, well, first you install the gem. And I think the gem can actually be installed on MRI because the gem itself is just sort of controlling, like building things. It doesn't actually necessarily, it runs tests and stuff through the JRuby that it packages with your application. So you can generate an app using a command kind of like this. So you can say like what version of Android you want to target using Android, the IDs that Android provides, and the package name, because it's still kind of Java-ish. And so that generates a whole bunch of files. But I was going to show you kind of like the basic activity example thing that it generates, which is a lot of text. So I opened it up in another window. So Android has this concept of an activity. And so like when you look at what would be a page on a web app with buttons and what have you on it, that would be an activity on an Android application. And so the default one just says, "Don't worry, gato, Mr. Roboto" as the title, and then has a little button that when you press it, it changes some text. And it's not especially interesting, but it kind of gives you an idea of where to modify things. Like the initialize method works kind of funny on Android because of how it creates objects or something. I'm not exactly clear about that. So let's see. So then the Ruby-ish, the ish part of it is there's also a project for running Mira, which is kind of like Ruby, but compiles directly to JVM bytecode and has Java's object model. So it looks like Ruby, but it's completely different in a lot of ways. But it's cool, and it also has a framework for writing stuff on Android. And with that, you run a similar command that generates the framework for you. And so like code for that would look more like, I had some up, let's see. So here's some like example code that's actually doing something. So this is someone's going through an Android tutorial that's telling you how to make games. And so what this does is it builds a Sudoku game app. And so like I was telling you about the activity stuff before, so on create, you set up all of your state about like what to do with different listeners and how you want your content to look. And then you can respond to different kinds of events. And this mostly looks like Ruby, and the reason why, typically with Mira code, you're going to have put a little bit of type information so that the compiler can figure out what types things are and it can infer that. But if you're inheriting from things, then it can just go, oh, well, this is this method, and you're probably going to be it's probably going to be taking this type of thing. So that makes it a lot simpler. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. I wrote a little test app that is kind of simple. So it's just a guess my number app, So it's like one of those beginning coding problems. So I made a little game class that creates a number and then, does how many counts, like you make a guess, and then when you ask how the game is doing, it looks at the last guess and compares that to the number and tells the thing that depends on that whether you won or lost. And so then I created an activity for that, and so I don't have an emulator running, but I would show you if I did. So you can like click on a button and guess fill out a text field, which is what this is. It's got, I don't know, it's not as nice as Ruby Motion's stuff that for building UIs, but there is a fairly nice DSL there, and I don't know, it's Ruby on your phone. You can download it in the App Store. There's an IRB app, so you can actually do IRB calculations on it. It's pretty cool. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you.